All right. There we go. All right. I'm good to go. Man, that light is bright. I'm seeing hand signals, so I don't know if I'm supposed to steal second or if that means the live stream's going. Okay, we're live. All right. You tell I don't do this often. As you noticed, the homework answers look a lot like the homework question for today. So one is from Daniel and one's for Revelation. And just another hint, if you don't feel like doing all the bottom work yourself, tomorrow night I'll be handing out those words and all the references. So if you don't feel like doing a whole lot of work, wait for tomorrow and we'll be passing those out. It's not, because when I did it, I gave it to Christy. I'm like, here, try these. And she did it. She goes, it's the same. It wasn't a challenge. I'm like, it's not about the challenge. It's about looking at the words, going to Daniel, going to Revelation, and seeing that tie-in. So it's not meant to be difficult. Trying to give you the answers, make it easy, and that's what it's all about. So let's go ahead and pray, and we'll open up tonight. Father God, we love you. God, we thank you for your blessings on us. God, we thank you for all that you've done in our lives. Lord, I pray that you will be with this VBS this evening. Lord, help us as we finish Matthew 24. Lord, that you will speak through me. Lord, give me the words to speak. We ask this in your Son's name. Amen. All righty. So I'm trying a new tactic I practiced today at home. I'm going to change that slide, then this one, so I don't get out of sync again. But it'll happen. So we are in our study of Daniel's vision to the end of days. Again, we have this lovely bag with something in it. The bag's more important than what's in the thing. So tomorrow night we'll be handing out tickets, doing that drawing. There's Gary. Gary, was you going to try and take the tables down?
Yes.
Okay, tomorrow evening we'll all be in the pews.
And ask everybody to sit close.
And we'll ask you to sit close because about 8 o'clock the kids are going to come in, and then the kids' parents will be coming in. So if you don't want to stay, you want to get home before it gets dark, whatever, don't feel like you have to, but we won't have the tables and chairs up tomorrow night. So that's our instruction for tomorrow night. Any other instructions? That's it. We're good. Again, the Logan and Katie Loveday's kids, their mission trip. Yeah, I can't say enough about trying to support these kids and trying to help them to go on this trip. As you might guess, it's pretty expensive to go from Boston, Massachusetts to Portugal. And to take a family of 5, it's real expensive. So anything you can do to help the kids, Katie and Logan feel like they're on their way for their fundraising, but the kids still need some support. So if you can help, that would be much appreciated. So what I want to do now is do a quick review of day 1 through 3, what we looked at in the book of Daniel. Then once we do that recap, what I'd like to do is come back and make sure we have clarity, or at least clarity for the most part. Okay, it may not be super clear, but we'll see what we can do. So the first thing we did is we looked at Nebuchadnezzar's first dream. In that dream, he seen this great statue. The statue had a head of fine gold, which represented Babylon. Had a breast and arms of silver, which represented the Medo-Persian Empire. The belly and thighs of brass, which was the Greek Empire. And then legs of iron, and then the feet were a mix of iron and clay, and that represented the Roman Empire. And I got out of sequence already, 4 slides into it. All right, I guess I didn't practice enough today. Then we looked at Daniel 7. We looked at the first vision of Daniel, and he sees 4 beasts come up out of the water. The first beast was the lion with eagle's wings. That represented the nation of Babylon. The second beast he saw was a bear with 3 ribs in its mouth. That represented Medo-Persia. And then later in chapters 8 and 9, Medo-Persia is represented by a ram. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in this recap. The Greek Empire, coming up out of the water in chapter 7, was represented by a leopard with 4 heads and 4 wings. Later in chapters 8 and 9, the Greek Empire is represented by the goat. The Roman Empire was indescribable, and he basically just said it was terrible and awesome, fearsome with iron teeth. It must have really been something if he couldn't even draw off of what to say it looked like or similar to. So the Babylonian Empire, Belshazzar's killed, and the Medo-Persians defeat Babylon. The Medo-Persian Empire, which was represented by the ram with 2 horns, one longer than the other, is the Persian Empire. The Persian Empire being the longer of the 2 horns. Then you had the Greek Empire, which was represented by the goat with 1 horn, which was Alexander the Great. And then that was replaced with 4 horns, which was a division of the Greek Empire over 4 generals. Antiochus Epiphanes becomes the little horn that waxed great. And as we talked through the week, that was the foreshadow of the Antichrist. He's the one that caused the desolation in the temple. He sacrificed a pig on the altar in the temple, and he also brought the god of Zeus into the temple. And then the Roman Empire, again, described as dreadful, terrible with iron teeth. And then we have the collapse of these empires. October 12th of 539 BC, the Babylonian Empire fell. It fell in a single day. Practically no shots fired. What they did is they dried up the Euphrates and walked underneath the wall and said, ta-da, we're here, you lose, and they surrendered. So very little fighting actually took place. The Medo-Persian Empire fell on October 1st, 331 BC. They fell to the Greek Empire. I guess the learning there is if you have your own empire, don't do battles in October because apparently they don't end well. So keep it to yourself. The Greek Empire fell to Rome over a very long period of time. They lost major battles over a 115-year span. The Roman Empire never fell, it dissolved. Yeah, it just broke up and dissolved. It just couldn't sustain itself. It was too big. Now, all through Daniel, everything has had a prophetic look going forward. So when we look at these 4 empires, there has to be something involved here that we see or we can take away. So Babylon, the head of gold, the lion, it fell in a single night. It fell on the night of Belshazzar's feast when he seen the writing on the wall in Daniel 5. The Medo-Persian Empire, which is represented as the arms and chest of silver, the bear, and the ram, was absolutely crushed by Alexander the Great. These empires, their chapters of history just closed. They fell fast. There was no imperial structure left, and everything returned to the captor or to the victor of the battle. When Alexander the Great died, he was only 32 years old. The Greek Empire didn't vanish overnight. It was a slow process, like I mentioned earlier. The Greeks were represented by the leopard with 4 heads with 4 wings. And Alexander's empire ended up getting carved out to the 4 generals, which we talked about. Of those 4 generals, the little horn Antiochus Epiphanes arises out of one of those and becomes a regional faction going forward in prophecy. So the Greek Empire fell over a period of time, and some of the Greek mythologies and those things stay around. They don't go away. When you go to, if you ever have the opportunity to visit Greece, please take that opportunity. It's amazing to me how much Greek mythology is still on display all across Greece. Even though they lost the war, even though their empire was destroyed, they're still hanging on to that dynasty. And then the Roman Empire, we mentioned, dissolved. It didn't fall in a battle, even though it doesn't exist anymore. The structure, the iron legs still exist as far as infrastructure, laws, culture, how they divide things across Europe. A lot of the Roman Empire infrastructure still remains across all of Europe. When it said it has a feet of iron and clay, that represents a very loose and unstable coalition. Was it 5-6 years ago we had Brexit when the UK pulled out of the European Union. Poland doesn't want to participate at the same level other EU nations participate. Speaking of the Greeks, their economy is tanking. The rest of the European Union doesn't want to help support that. So it's a very unstable coalition of nations still to this day, and it all can be traced back to that Roman Empire. Because it did gradually dissolve, and it's fragmented and will remain that way till the return of Christ. Now, if you remember in Daniel 2 in the dream, there's a stone that's cut without hands and hits the statue. It hits the statue in the feet. It didn't hit the statue up high. It hits him in the feet. That's taking out and finally destroying the Roman Empire that's never been destroyed before. So, Daniel, what questions do you have that I may or may not be able to answer? Good. I was afraid somebody had asked some deep question. I'd be like, well, we'll turn to Gary for this. Oh, but seriously, if you do have questions, stop me, ask me later. May have to do a research project, but if you do have a question, let's dig into it and find out rather than just walk away with the All right, last night we started into Daniel 24, or Daniel. Yeah, if you find Daniel 24, let me know. In Matthew 24, it reads like Daniel 24. If Daniel would have had a 24th chapter, there's a lot of parallels. We got through 11 verses, and I want to read those back tonight. And then after we do that, I want to recap those verses. Then we'll start with the new material in verse 12. So starting here at verse 1, and Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples come unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you, For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye not be troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another, and many false prophets shall arise, and shall deceive many. You notice in these 11 verses, we have the word deceive about 3 or 4 times. How do we not get deceived? The Bible, stay in the Bible. What did Timothy say? Study to show yourself approved. What Paul wrote to Timothy. We need to stay in the Word so we know what's being said is true and what is right. I follow Chuck Meisner a lot in a lot of his studies, and he always says, don't take what I said 100%. Go check me out. Here's a verse, here's a reference, go see if I'm right. He goes, just don't take my word for it, read it yourself. So just to recap these 11 verses real quick, Jesus is sitting on the Mount of Olives. The disciples come to him with a three-part question. When shall these things be? What shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world? We talked about that last night. We've seen that parallel from Daniel, those same questions being asked. When Jesus answers this, when he starts talking about the signs and warnings, and he's emphasizing the beginning of sorrows, the first thing he warns about is spiritual deception. He says, don't be deceived. Take heed. Take heed means full attention. Listen to what's being said. Rightly divide it by the scripture and make sure that you're not led astray. He talked about the geopolitical chaos that's going to happen, the wars and rumors of wars. We see that now. We see the cadence getting closer and closer and tighter and tighter. You know, we used to have 40, 50, 60 years between major wars, and we've had World War I, II, Korea, Vietnam, some minor skirmishes in Central America with Panama, Grenada. Then we had the Middle East, 1 and 2, Afghanistan, all those conflicts in a 60-year period of time. When we go in, he goes a little further when he talks about the beginning of sorrows. These things is what begins, and then those contractions, that time gets closer and closer and tighter, and it becomes more intense. He talks about famines and pestilence and earthquakes. I didn't research it myself, but I wonder how much of what seems like more famines and pestilence and earthquakes, because we have more access to data. Because we have the internet, we can see things live real time. Are we seeing that increase in pace, or is it just because we hear about it more? So probably something to dig into, give you something to do some afternoon when it's raining. And then the false prophets, again, not being deceived. We have a lot of false prophets today. We've had numerous over the years. You had, what was it, Jim Jones? Is that right? Yeah, Jim Jones, Pastor Moon. You had all these people claiming to be prophets. As many as we've seen over our lifetime. Now remember, Jesus is talking to Jews about end times. He's saying there's going to be a bunch of these rise up. So it must going to be really bad. Now you got to think the rapture happens before this. So people are gone. We know that God turns us over to our own delusion. It says that in Thessalonians. So are all these people popping up just to get rich quick because they know the rapture happened? We don't know what that's going to be like, but Jesus warns people to be weary of these false prophets. So that takes us up to verse 12 where we left off last night. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure until the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Okay, there's two things I want to unpack here in verse 13. It says, but he that shall endure until the end, the same shall be saved. Think back to what we seen in Daniel 12. Blessed is he that waiteth. If anything comes after me, let me know. Daniel 12. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,335 days. 1,335 days. Man, I gotta do this. All right. I was like, why didn't it change? Okay, notice it says endure. That word endure is a Greek term which has a military concept that says to remain under load with a spirit of bravery. In other words, it's all coming down on you. You're the last gap between yourself and your own life. And the pressure you're feeling is what this endure is. It's when a soldier is in a position when the enemy fire is the most intense, and you've got to hold your position. That's what this word endure means. Now, the last thing here in this verse says, shall be saved. So the ascension of Jesus marked the beginning of the church age. We had the ascension of Jesus, the day of Pentecost, the church age begins. So, how does someone get saved in the church age? Say again? Accept Jesus into your heart? It's faith in Christ. Confess his name and thou shalt be saved. Keep going. I mean, we should be spitting out all kinds of answers. We should know how to get saved, right? The gospel is the power of God unto salvation. We know what it means to get saved in the church age. So when is our salvation secured? It's not a trick question, I promise. Soon as we ask, as soon as we get saved, I heard something else. Right on the spot. Preacher Ty always, is he still over there? Oh, he's hiding from me. He always says that when you step out of the aisle to come up here, you got saved when you stepped out. That was that commitment. But notice what this verse says. Shall endure until the end, and the same shall be saved. We're going to dig that a little deeper as we go. That slide changed. This one did. There we go. Now, verse 14. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. All right. This verse often gets misunderstood or misused. How many have ever heard the rapture can't happen until every nation gets the gospel? I think we've all heard that. This is the verse they're using for that. We got to back up and remember Jesus is talking to the Jews. Are we all good there? Okay, when we look at Jesus is talking to the Jews, the church is raptured out at this point. We are long gone. Notice it says this gospel. Okay, what gospel do we have? I heard we have the gospel of Jesus Christ. We have the good news. We have assurance of salvation. The day we get saved, we're sealed to the day of redemption. We have all that promise. But this is talking about this gospel of the kingdom. So if we move on and we look at verse 13 and 14 together, we got to make sure we get the context right. But he that shall endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel referring back to, notice the word and starts the sentence. The gospel of enduring to the end that brings salvation, that this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end be. So this gospel, when you look at what he's saying, and we'll go into another reference after this slide, when people try to use this verse to say the gospel has to go to all these nations before the rapture can happen, okay? If you look at what Paul wrote in Corinthians and Romans, in Corinthians 1:23, Paul writes, the gospel was preached to every creature which is under heaven, whereof I, Paul, am made a minister. In Romans 10:18, he quotes Psalms and says, yes, verily, their sound went into all the earth, and their words unto the ends of the world. In Romans 1:8, Paul said the faith that he taught and preached in Rome is spoken of throughout the whole world. So in Paul's mind and in Paul's writing, the gospel went to the known world and the known nations by himself, the disciples. If you go out and do some research of where all the gospel went following the ascension, it went all over Asia, Europe, the Middle East, Africa. They spread to what was the known world at the time. So bear with me just a little more. So this gospel that's preached, we preach in the church age a gospel that is grace through faith. Just like Gary said, that's how we're saved. Notice carefully, this says this gospel of the kingdom. This means there's a specific gospel, a specific message, and a specific word that's going out, that God rules all nations, over all men, over the entire physical earth. And we see that in Revelation chapter 14. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship with him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. So this gospel that we're seeing in Matthew 24 isn't the gospel of faith and grace that we see. This is the gospel preached by these angels and the two witnesses and the 144,000 converts of the Jews who are preaching the gospel. So we'll see that some more as we continue to go. Is everybody okay if we keep moving? Are we good? All right. I don't want to take off and you guys go, I still don't get it. We're good. All right. So verse 15, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoke of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. Okay? Whoever read Daniel didn't understand that Jesus was coming. But whoever reads this, you better understand what's about to happen. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Notice this is a warning to the Jew, not to the church. The church is long gone by this point. Notice he says, let them which be in Judea. He's not writing to us. I don't have a second house in Judea. I don't know if anybody else does. If you do, I'd like to borrow it sometime. We don't live there. Now, wow, that got really tiny. Can y'all see that? All right. Kara will be my interpreter. I'll read it. So what we have here, the abomination of desolation. We've seen it already spoke of in Daniel. If you come over here, you see the Daniel column, Daniel 9:27, 11:31, 12:11. The abomination that makes desolate set up is referred to in those three references. That's referenced here in Matthew 24:15, that when you see it, as spoken by Daniel, and then what's going to happen is the daily sacrifice stops. So we see that specific tie to Daniel to this verse. Then verse 16, let them which in Judea flee into the mountains. This highlights again, Jesus is talking to the Jews. He's not talking to us, the church. We've already been taken up. We've already been raptured. We don't live in Judea. Verse 17, let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. If you've ever spent much time in the Middle East or Central Asia, East Asia, it's hot. It's hot all the time, and a lot of people spend a lot of time on the roof of their house to at least try and get some cool breeze. He's saying if you're up there when it happens, just go. Don't even go inside the house. Don't get your extra shoes or coat or jacket. Just leave. Then verse 18 and 19, neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes, and woe unto them that are with child and them that give suck in those days. He said, even if you're out and you don't have anything with you, just keep going. Just keep moving. Don't stop. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath. When it says neither the Sabbath, remember the Jews still hold the Sabbath very holy. We talked about it in our Sunday school class. I think they have 39 specific rules that they can't do on the Sabbath. One of them is wear leather shoes, which I've found humorous. So don't be wearing leather shoes around here on a Sunday. Verse 21, for then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. Now this is where it starts really getting deep. And except those days shall be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. We're going to talk about the elect here in a bit. Then if any man shall say unto you, lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. Again, we're talking about deception again. Verse 24, for there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Again, we're seeing this deception. Verse 25, behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. This is day 100 or 1290. The desolation has already happened in the temple. This is the Son of God coming. This is day 1290. Now, when it says lightning cometh from the east, I don't, if y'all's grandpa was like my grandpa, he always said, fear the storm that comes from the east. They always pack more of a punch. They have more wind. They have more damage. They have more hail. And the lightning is bright and brilliant. When I see this, I picture one of those storms like my grandpa used to warn us about. That's what the coming of the Son of God's going to be. For whatsoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. That references back to Ezekiel. We're not going to pull on that string. There's not enough time to go through those chapters. So verse 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. This is day 1335. We'll dig a little into that a little bit later, but that's that 45-day gap we talked about earlier. So verse 31, and he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heaven to the other. Again, day 1335. The elect, these are the ones who accept this gospel that was preached by the angels during the tribulation. Okay? These people weren't pre-selected 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. They have to accept that gospel while it's being preached. They have as much free will in the tribulation as we have free will in the church age. Don't let people, the false teachers, the deceivers say, well, there's already an elect number of people who's going to be saved, blah, 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 blah. I was listening to one. I didn't know he was one of them until about halfway through listening to him. And he started talking this junk. At the beginning of his sermon, he's talking about how he was getting ready to go to a foreign country. I don't remember which one now. It was in Africa somewhere, to be a missionary. Process that for a minute. You're wanting people to give you money to go be a missionary to people that God already selected. Bro, just stay home. God already selected him and he don't need you. I got to that point and I started going, man, this dog don't hunt. And I just changed and skipped it and went to another sermon. But this elect is free will. Don't let anybody deceive you on that. All right, another eye chart. You're welcome. So next year, when we're going to grow, we're going to have more people in VBS. I will do my charts and then come in and see how bad they look on the screen that far away. I apologize. So the tribulation saints that's mentioned in verse 31, those elect, they're referred to as tribulation saints. Let's talk about who can be saved and who cannot be saved during the tribulation period. Okay? And I hate to turn my back to the crowd, but I want to kind of help you if you need it. So over here on the left side, you have groups. You have the Jewish remnant, Gentiles who never heard, your pre-rapture gospel rejectors, and the mark of the beast recipients. So you got four groups of people. Okay? if the Jewish remnant, yes, the purpose of the tribulation period is to bring the house of Israel back to God. They can be saved through the preaching of the angels, the two prophets or the two ministers, and then those who get converted will begin trying to convert other Christians at 144,000. That's covered in Revelation 7:4 and Romans 11:26. Would you all like me to print that and hand it out tomorrow? I think I will remember to do that. Probably. Masa. Yeah, I was getting ready to say, remind me tomorrow. The Gentiles who never heard. According to Revelation 7:9 and Revelation 14:6, this is an innumerable, can't count that high, number of people who can be saved during the tribulation period. Those are Gentiles. Now let's talk about those who cannot get saved during the tribulation. Pre-rapture gospel rejectors. That's people who heard the gospel. It was explained. They understood. There's a difference. They understood the gospel and rejected it and walked away. As soon as that trumpet sounds and we all take off, they have no other opportunity. All those people who are fallen to the deceit of, I'll get saved during the tribulation, ain't a word, but it ain't going to happen. That's in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 11 and 12. God will give them over to their strong delusion. They were deluded that they could do this, and he's going to give them that delusion. Then the last is anyone who accepts the mark of the beast. If you accept the mark of the beast, Revelation 14, you cannot get saved in the tribulation period. Whether you're Jew, Gentile, whatever, you can't get saved if you accept that mark. So verse 32. Now Jesus remember I told you last night that Jesus didn't exactly answer all the questions in the order the questions were asked. So now he's going back to signs. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say, hey, he's fine, don't worry. Oh, she's going anyway. He's just agreeing. So likewise ye, when ye shall see these things, know that it is near, even at the door. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. So we have the parable of the fig tree. Okay, the fig tree is typically a symbol of the nation of Israel. The most popular theory is 1948, when Israel became a nation, that's when it started, that this generation comment. The other is Jerusalem became the capital in 1967 following the 6-Day War. Okay, that's the start date for this generation. In 1980, Israel declared Jerusalem as a capital, like officially in the UN. Okay, so that starts the start date for this generation. I think we're trying too hard, to be honest with you. In a generation in the Bible is anywhere from 70 years to 120 years. And then you've got 3 probable start dates, 1948, 1967, and 1980. It doesn't matter. When I said the plain thing's the main thing, make sure you have a personal relationship with Christ. Make sure you can tell somebody the day you got saved. and make sure you can tell somebody how good it is to be saved. If you can't do those three things, you need to see Pastor Ty before you go home tonight, because that is the main thing. What this date is, I don't know, nor do I care, because I'm born again, I'm saved, I'm ready, waiting for the trumpet to sound. What that date is, it doesn't matter. So, verse 36, but of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Remember, we seen in Daniel, God knew way back then because the date was set. It went into the scroll and was sealed. Verse 37, but as the days of Noah, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days they were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them away. So also shall the Son of Man be. Okay, verse 120, or verse 37, that 2090, that's the day that you have the abomination of desolation. Verse 39 is what it will be just prior to that day, because it says not until the flood came and took them away. Notice it says they were eating and drinking and giving in marriage, and just life was fantastic. When we look at Genesis chapter 6, I took some excerpts from a few verses and I'll read them to you. Verse 2, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. The word took and chose, it is pretty cleaned up language for what truly happened. I'll just leave it there. Verse 5, and God saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Verse 11, the earth was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. Verse 12, and God looked upon the earth and beheld it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. Again, that word flesh and corrupted is very cleaned up language. So what Jesus is telling the disciples in Matthew 24, these were an evil, corrupt, sick, sadistic, twisted people, and were so comfortable in their sin that they were eating, drinking, getting married, going on with everyday life like this was normal behavior. Yes, ma'am.
Who are the sons of God?
The sons of God are believed to be the fallen angels that fell when Lucifer was kicked out of heaven. And that's where the Nephilim come from. And I think there's three other, I think it was in Samuel, you can find it. But those are the fallen angels, basically. It was so ugly and corrupt at that time, they didn't even notice it. And that's what he's saying. That's what it's going to be like. What the Jews will be living in all around them, all across the world. That's how sick and twisted this world will be at that time. Then in verse 40, then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken and the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken and the other left. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the goodman of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would have not suffered his house to be broken in. Okay? This is not the rapture. It can be preached as the rapture because, remember when we were in Daniel, I said a lot of things that are prophetic have a foreshadowing event. This is a foreshadowing event, which is the rapture. The rapture foreshadows this. You can preach a sermon around the rapture and use these verses because it's apt. It is the foreshadow. What this is talking about, he's preaching to the Jews, teaching the Jews. This is the separation of the sheep and goats after the 1290 days. Those who were taken to judgment, who didn't accept Christ, those who persecuted the Jews, who accepted Christ during the tribulation period, they're the ones disappearing. We see this as, oh wow, one gets to go raptured out. No, in this context, they're getting taken to court. They're getting over there to see if their name's in the book of life. And then verse 44, therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find him so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him a ruler of all of his. In verse 48, and if that evil servant shall say in the heart, my Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to drink with the drunken, the Lord of the servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him this portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. In this previous verse, when it talks about when know not the hour the Son of Man cometh, remember the desolation's already happened in the temple. If they've read Daniel, they know there's 1290 days from that day to the day of the Lord, and then another 45 days for the millennial kingdom. So if they've been given to their own delusion, they don't know it's coming. They're not prepared for it. This is telling us to be ready. But notice the other thing, verse 46, blessed is the servant whose Lord, when he cometh, shall find him so doing. Remember in Daniel chapter 12, verse 12, that if you endure till the end, if you get saved during the tribulation period, you have to endure. You have to stick to the stuff to the bitter end. Most tribulation saints will be martyred during the tribulation period. If you live through it and you live to the end, when God comes calling on day 1390, he needs to find you busy. You need to be doing something. You need to stay, 1335. When that day comes, you need to be doing the Lord's work. Sir. Then you'll be caught up. We'll talk about that. I think that's tomorrow night. I think it's like the 7th or 8th thing in the sequence of events. There's a rapture of the tribulation saints who died. So, yeah, they will get called up to heaven. Good question. And then the weeping and gnashing of teeth. I listened to a sermon, don't even remember who it was. And he was talking about the weeping and gnashing of teeth. Oh, yeah, do I need to change it? Wow. First mistake I made all day. This weeping and gnashing of teeth, I've always thought it was because of the pain. And this preacher said the weeping is probably the people going, I heard the gospel. I understood the gospel. I knew what it said, and I rejected it. And they are weeping their hearts out in an eternity of hell because they rejected the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's full regret. Then he also said the gnashing is the guy whose teeth are gritted going, Why did you do this to me, God? I went to church. I gave a tithe. I went to Sunday school. I sang in a choir. But they never gave their heart to Christ. They never repented of their sin. They never asked God to be the Savior of their life. And they're down there gnashing their teeth in anger. I don't know if any of that's spot on, but it sure enough makes sense. Because there's going to be a lot of church members who is relying on attendance and Sunday school pins. So the 45 days, verse 11 of Daniel chapter 12, and from that time the daily sacrifice, 290 days. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 and 30 days. You would have been really helpful if the Hebrews would have made a number for everything. Because the Hebrews had 0 through 9. They had 10 and 20 and 30, then 100. They didn't have individual numbers. So that's why when you read Hebrew text, when it says 1,305 and 30 days, they have to put them all together to get to the 1,335. Had nothing to do with the lesson. Anyway, while the Bible doesn't explicitly tell us what this 45 days is, or what this 45 days represents, most eschatologists generally agree. I mean, you put 3 experts in a room, you'll never get a good opinion. But they generally agree that this is a transition or a cleanup period between the second coming of Christ and the millennial kingdom. There's a 45-day gap. Most of them believe that it's an opportunity to transition and to clean the temple, to cleanse it because of the desolation that happened there. Christ isn't going to come into a dirty house. They believe that's what that 45-day period of time is for. You're right. That don't mean a thing, does it? He didn't even get to enjoy it, did he? All right, 45 days. So you have the judgment of nations, which we'll talk about as we go into the sequence of events. That's described in Matthew chapter 25. That's the separation of the sheep and goats, where the survivors of the tribulation are sorted based on the least of these. How did you treat and how did you take care of the tribulation saints? You also have the parable of the tares from Matthew 13, where the weeds are gathered together and taken out of the wheat. That's part of this 45-day period, is the assumption. The appointment of a government. This is where the administrative structure, the Messianic kingdom, where the saints will judge the world. You see that in 1 Corinthians. And then lastly, the temple dedication. Some suggest this time is used to cleanse and rededicate the earthly sanctuary. The Bible doesn't specifically say it, but these events line up with the second coming of Christ and the millennium period. So it's believed that that's what's transpiring. So let's stop there, and we'll pick up tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, make sure you bring your timeline with you. If you don't have it, we got some more. I'll give you the first one for free. The rapture of the church is the next event. If you haven't figured that out yet, I've tried to say it 100 times, the church ain't here. So that's number one, and we'll put that on the map. So let's say a quick word of prayer and we'll head out. Brother Kevin, would you close us out?